All right, sorry about that. We are going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:03 p.m. on what is today, the 1st of October. Welcome, everybody. We are also joined this evening by Chief Picasso from Brattleboro, Chief Bristol of Guilford, and Chief Hazelton from Rescue Incorporated. We have some members of the, some applicants from the Alberta Fire Department here. Is there still another one around the corner over there? No? Yes? Okay. All right, and we have a nice turnout on Zoom land too. Can everybody hear us in Zoom land? All right, perfect. So can't see that. Sarah, Mark, and Austin from BCTV. And then I'm not sure, just Ryan up in the corner. All right. So that was all of the guests that we have, and I suspect we will see some more showing up here. We really wanted to give people a chance to talk to the area chiefs with any questions, concerns they may have, and also allow them a chance to fill the town in on what they're doing during this situation and how they've really stepped up. And gentlemen, I have to say that it is greatly appreciated. This has been very smooth, and it's very nice to know that every resident of Vernon has everything that they need because of our very strong mutual aid system. So we appreciate it. Chief Picasso, do you have anything to start us off with here? Anything that you'd like to bring up, point out?
Guilford, Brattleboro, Vernon have worked very closely together to make sure the names covered. We did some work on the running cards for mutual aid just because we needed to move things around and fill in gaps. The Vernon not being available. And really just, I think I feel good about where we're at.
Okay. Anybody in Zoom that was not able to hear that, I'll just reiterate. Chief Picasso said that he feels good about where we are at. Between the surrounding towns, they've been able to separate Vernon into a couple of different sectors to make sure that every part of the town is covered during this. Is there any questions from the select board for any of these three gentlemen over here? Thank you. Seeing none. Any questions from the audience, whether it be in Zoom or on the floor? Okay. Yeah. So, Chief, a couple of things that have been asked or concerns that have come up are things about, response time, that you are coming from Brattleboro. How do we address that? Yes, please.
Take the North District of Brattleboro covers. We're a career department. We're already in the station. So we're out the door immediately upon getting the alarm with a fire truck headed to Vernon. When the Vernon department is active, they need to come from where they are to the station, get a truck, and then respond. For that time that they're spending getting to the fire station, we're actually are already on the way to Vernon. I think that time, for the most part, is a wash. Our travel time versus to Vernon versus the travel time to get a truck, it kind of washes out. We did a query on the call that Brattleboro has done to Vernon since the first of the year. We've done 5 calls, and the average response time to the C is 12 minutes. And that is including one that was in the middle of a pretty good snowstorm. And that kind of hiked up the average time. We were canceled. Though I know 12 minutes sounds like a long time, and you're waiting for help, it is a long time. I wish I knew Vernon's average response time. I would dare say that we're pretty close to being able to get to an address in Vernon with the by the looks of what we have on record.
A couple other, and I'll reiterate quickly that they've been able to respond to Vernon. I believe you said 6 calls since the first of the year, all with an average response time of 12 minutes. Because they are a career department, they are in-house, ready to respond, and oftentimes on the road anticipating if it's of a serious nature, whereas the volunteer department needs to respond from where they are to get the apparatus and get on scene, thus making the response time similar to that of the volunteer department that we have. Other things that we've been asked is how are you able to do this without it being a burden on your communities? And that almost might be a better question for Chief Bristol, being another volunteer department.
Well, first of all, we like to obviously help out you guys in any way we can. We know this is kind of an odd thing going on, and hopefully it doesn't last forever. You guys are being very aggressive, which is great. And to be organized, back to the way that you'd like to see it. So we are going to spread thin a little bit, depending on the weather, depending on the call volume. So yeah, we'll have to play by ear. We have to go here for some reason, and have something in Guilford, or we're have more equipment over here. Like two trucks over here, we're going to fill our station here. Just to make sure that Guilford doesn't stay uncovered. So we'll make it work.
And Chief Bacassi, I know that we've split the town up into 3 different sectors, but in the event of a bigger emergency, things requiring extrication, structure fires, anything like that, are we correct to assume that in those events, even if it would be in, say, Bernardston's district or sector, that Brattleboro is still going to be rolling an engine at the time of that tone?
For instance, if it is in Bernardston's district, both Guilford and Brattleboro will be there, along with several other mutual aid partners from throughout the area. I mean, we're using the province as far north as Westminster, Vermont, as far south as Gill and Deerfield, Massachusetts, to help fill some of these gaps until Vernon gets back on.
Chief Hazelton from Rescue Inc., what kind of challenges does this present for you as far as your EMS coverage to town?
So our response to Vernon is at our Brattleboro office, so our response times are unchanged from what they typically are. The loss of the immediate response right of the EMS response. And we're working on that. We do have additional personnel that are responding to dispatches that sound like they are required as personnel. And we also have the ability to bring either any of the partner fire departments into the additional manpower. And we have already had to utilize that as part of this arrangement, and it's worked smooth so far. But there's going to be a delay in that initial first response activity. But as far as the ambulance is showing up, that is completely unchanged.
So to reiterate for Chief Hazelton, response times out of Rescue Inc. are unchanged, being as though that they are a manned station and always there and always toned for any medical emergencies to town. There is a slight lag in first response, being as though we had an EMS service that responded some direct to scene, and we're able to kind of assess that and give rescue a heads up. So that's really about the only difference. However, you've been able to use the surrounding mutual aid to ease that a little bit, and that's worked well. Okay. That point, I'm out of questions. Anybody else have anything? Seeing no questions, I'm going to move on to the restructuring of the Vernon EMS. We have collectively, myself, Drew Hazelton, and some conversations with Bratt Fire as well as Guilford Fire, just kind of bouncing ideas around, seeing how we can move forward and what pieces can be put back together sooner than others. In the EMS, because Vernon EMS responds to last year 199 EMS calls, the fire side responded to 43, I believe, off the top of my head. So we felt that the EMS side needed to be restructured and put back on the road as soon as possible, but still doing it the right way, making sure that we were looking at everything, going through the equipment, everything that's at the department, and making sure that we were having conversations with those that had reapplied. So the restructuring of the EMS, the effective this evening would be that we would have a deputy. So the fire department, when that's restructured, will have a chief, and then there will be a deputy chief of the fire service, and there will be a deputy chief of the EMS side. The deputy chief for the Vernon EMS will be Zach Rounds. Zach is an AEMT with Rescue Inc., where he is also a lieutenant, and he is a resident of Vernon and has been on the Vernon Fire and EMS. The captain of the EMS responsible for training and safety will be Mike Pratt. He has been with the Vernon Fire Department for over 10 years. He is also an EMT. We will have the lieutenant, which will also act as the clerk and administrative role. That will be Tasha Cross. And I believe she's been on the fire department for 5 years. 3, okay. And she is also an EMT. We will also be welcoming back Jamez Jobin, who is an AEMT, Brian Hemingway, an EMT, John and Vicky Hall, both EMTs. There are 2 other applicants that we've received for the EMS side of it, which will go through an interview process with the new officers of the EMS. Zach has spent some time going through the equipment, seeing where we're at, what we need, putting lists together, and making sure that we are in good shape for that. We did find an awful lot of issues down there that have been addressed and resolved, and we're looking forward to moving forward. I think that this is going to be a great team to really get the doors of the Vernon Fire Department back open. And I know that this select board, after making such a big decision that was not easy, wanted to make sure that the Vernon Fire Department was back up on its feet. So it will be nice to see some lights on in there. It'll be nice to see some apparatus on the road. I know it's only been less than 2 weeks, but we, as Chief Bristol said, we wanted to be aggressive about this. And I think that we have gone across the board with everybody involved. But we also want to make sure that it's done the right way, that safety is the top priority, and that we're working together with our neighbors and with the people of the community to make sure that we're in a good place. So that's that. Any questions for the EMS restructuring side of it that was just discussed? Anything over there, Chiefs? You guys good? Brian?
My question.
Yeah.
My question is, before we had our
It would be my opinion that because everybody that was listed there was a member in good standing when this happened, that we would not be going back through that process. That would, for USAC, that would not hold true for new hires that you may present. We would still be going through that process. Other questions? It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be tonight. Talking. All right. So next on the agenda, we want to put a fire department restructuring advisory committee in place. That did go out to the town. I believe it was on the newsletter on the website as well as on Facebook, seeking letters of interest to be on that committee. We were looking to have 7 people on that committee because somebody needs an odd number. So, so we have retired Chief David Emery. We have Brattleboro Fire Chief. Yep, the Brattleboro Fire Chief. We have Alex Dunkley, who has submitted a letter of interest. We have Marilyn Sherlin that has submitted. Jason Boudreau, sorry if I ruined that, and Chris LaFlamme. In Guilford, we are looking for a representative from your town. You're going to do that? Oh man, we get to see a lot. So we also have Chief Jared Bristol. Could I get a motion for that? Moved and seconded to appoint Chief David Emery, Chief Bacassi, Chief Bristol, Alex Dunkley, Marilyn Shirley, Jason Boudreau, Chris LaFlamme to the restructuring advisory. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Awesome. Next on that, we would like to task you gentlemen with a few things. We have, obviously, we've got to get you guys into a meeting at some point for you guys to schedule that.
Yes, that's awesome.
And
What did they say?
right there, right up in the corner there. So a meeting so that you guys can structure that. And then we are in the middle of budget season here. So we, as a select board last night at the budget meeting, we did go over the fire department's budget. And we have a proposed budget that we will submit to the town treasurer and get you gentlemen a copy of that in. Where is Marilyn? Oh, okay. Yeah, she's hiding. So we want to get you that proposed budget and see if that makes sense from professionals' eyes, because the 5 of us are not professionals in the fire service. So, and then obviously the chief, assistant chief, recruitment, hiring, how that should look and what we should be doing there. So really, we're looking for some advice from you on how to proceed and what you may need from us to be able to do that and how we can all work together. Chief Emery, if I may ask you, we discussed last night in the budget meeting the capital plan, and because we had the capital needs assessment done, there was some issues down at the fire station. If we could ask you to meet with Linda and Tom and Sandra at some point down there to go over those 2 lists, that way we might be able to make a better decision on that. So if I could ask you to reach out to Linda and set that up, that would be great. Okay. Okay, perfect. And they are on the budget. Actually, they are coming to a select board meeting on Tuesday to discuss the capital plan. So
you can reach out to me tomorrow, or if you want to share that I don't have their contact information.
Yeah, that's fine. I was more saying that if you wanted to come on Tuesday, that was all right too. You're on the agenda too for an update, so okay. We'll see you anyway. Okay. All right, perfect. Any questions on the advisory committee? Seeing none. That's really all that we have for the fire and EMS side of it. We do have a request from the Recreation Department to use the gazebo area for a Halloween display where they want residents to be able to make scarecrows and things along those lines. I'll be right with you. I'll finish this one. And wanted to know if we would allow them to utilize that. I will get you a date right now. It would be, they would like to start putting them, they would set them up around October 24th and leave them until Halloween. Is anybody opposed to allowing the Recreation Department to utilize that space?
No.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Yes, Chief.
I would ask that maybe you could send an email to all the committee, the advisory committee, so we can have the contact with everyone, and that if you offer 1 or 2 dates so that we can have an organizational meeting and try to figure out what we're going to set up our meeting. So maybe you could pick the first one.
Sure.
And get everybody coordinated. And then, is anyone from the board going to be a representative to that?
We briefly discussed that, and anybody else jump in here, felt that because we were involved as much as we are, we would really prefer to step back and leave it to the advice of this committee. And moving forward, those decisions, we would still make those, but we want to make sure that they are sound decisions. And if we can remove just a little bit and have some new eyes looking at that, I think that was our preference.
So safe to say our group will report back to the board with recommendations, and the board will make a decision.
I believe that was kind of the way that we were leading. But, you know, on that, when we talk about the application process and things for members, I think that that's really we're gonna be looking to you guys and what your suggestions are with that.
It might be good for 1 or 2 of you, so you don't get into a meeting, and to also attend that organization meeting to give us, someone to orders that you would expect.
Sure. And then perhaps after that, or at some point during that, we could discuss actually getting something written up, which is something that we've asked all the other committees to do, is kind of outline what they think should be happening in there, and collectively we can sign off on that together. We do have currently, I believe it is 31 applications that we have received, some being support staff, a tremendous amount of personnel returning or has requested to return. We have 4 members, well, 3 definitely, potentially 4 that will be attending the Firefighter 1 class in Wilmington. And the select board all agreed that they should move forward with that and do that. A couple of other things on that committee we'll have to go through, and actually this would probably go with the meeting with Linda, going through all the equipment that's down there, the dates, all of that stuff, which I'm happy to jump in and help with that. This is intended to be a clean slate down there, so we want to make sure that when this is put back together, that it's put back together in a way that it's clean and organized, and whoever is coming into that position is able to just fall in and get to work immediately with the great men and women that want to be a part of that department. So hopefully there isn't a lengthy reorganizational process on their end, that we can start to knock some of that stuff out. And in no way is that a part of the advisory committee, but certainly I'll be reaching out for help as I'm trying to navigate through that kind of stuff. So any other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, well, I'm surprised this one in the front hasn't chimed in yet, but.
With that said, and with the appointment of EMS side of the fire, is this committee also going to take that on to be part of continuing advisory, or is that going to be standalone by itself?
Yeah, so I think that going forward, we want to make sure that there is, that the advisory committee is a part of that as it is integrated between the two. And Zach and I had a brief conversation about not a complete separation, but certainly so that, because the SOPs and SOGs currently have, everything's kind of blended together and doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense if it was a joint scene. So how do we divide that out? How do we know who's doing what given the scene that they're on? So I think that there will be some crossover need of that committee to make sure that we have that it's defined much better than it is now.
Well, my point would be if the EMS is a product and a side of the fire department, then it should be the committee's responsibility to make sure that stays within that purview. The last thing you want to do is appoint a fire chief and then say he has no control over the EMS side.
Correct.
Or on the EMS side, say that they're separate, because that would create more of an issue than you've seen before. Right,
which is why those, again, up to you. I don't know what that looks like as far as those, if it's a automobile accident and EMS is there doing, who then is in charge of that? So yes, those clear scene command type things, we would want to have spelled out so that everybody was on the same page.
Yeah, I'm good. I just wanted to be sure if it was going to be part of it.
Yep. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Is the EMS division, if you will, being activated as of now?
No, I thank you for asking that. I was not completely clear on that. The people listed here are able to access the station for organizational purposes to make sure that they're going to have to go through the gear that they have, making sure that the bags on the trucks are up to speed and that everything, and I know Zach's put some time in already, but really making sure that we are set up for success when they are able. And Zach had, at one point over the last couple of days, you gave me a date that you kind of thought could potentially be in there. And what was that again?
So I think that it's perfectly that'll give us a little bit more time to sort of regroup, clean up the versus address any future concerns that we have, goals we have, going through stuff. But we have equipment on order and they'll be here in the next 3 days. And I believe that the EMS will be able to successfully resume in its full capacity by the year.
Mr. Rounds is suggesting that by the 8th of October, he feels that the EMS portion would be able to start responding to EMS calls. Any further questions on that?
If you could just, whether it's exact or yourself, let us know when that happens.
Yep.
For sure, we have certain things in place now with mutual aid. Don't want to step on their toes if we want to rearrange all of that.
Sure. So we have another select board meeting on the 6th. Zach, for us to feel comfortable with the 8th, and at this point I'm speaking just for myself, but I think that we would get something from you letting us know that life is good, that things are organized, everything's back, things are in date, everybody has the gear that they need. And then the select board could discuss that on the 6th and make sure that everybody is comfortable with that before we go ahead and then after that, we could have a conversation with all of you folks. Does that work? Yeah?
Yeah, well, in chief capacity, we didn't touch base.
Any other questions? Anything in Zoom land? See a lot of people there and no questions.
Will the applicants be contacted soon for interviews, or how's that all going?
So that, Tim has asked if the applicants will be contacted soon for the interviews. I will say that he is one that should be going to the firefighter 1 course. So we may have to speed that up on a couple of you to make sure, but ultimately that's going to be up to the advisory committee and when they get organized, which I think we're all on the same page that we're going to move quickly on that to make sure that things are, that forward progression does not slow down. Would you agree, Chief? Any other questions?
But I want to say anybody that you've already said is registered and signed for the firefighter 1 class in Wilmington. Unless there's some outstanding problem that you're aware of, I would think. When does that start? Orientation is on the 7th.
Right.
And then the following, the 14th is successful. So
Yeah.
it might be wise to go ahead and say, get them enrolled in that.
Yeah, they are enrolled. It's going to be a matter of reissuing gear, which we are going to have to do date checks on. And I feel that I can handle that, but I may ask for, just make sure we're doing
Well, they won't need gear the first one.
for that first, for the orientation. I didn't know if they did
I don't
inspections.
think so.
They don't do inspections or anything at that first orientation?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
I'll mention one other thing, it might not be really related to right now, might be more like when there's a keeping place. But I know like our trainings are always on Wednesday at the department, and that's gonna be the day of the class for Fire 1. And what I'm concerned about is missing out on all the new training, you know, if I go back or whatever the case may be. I don't wanna miss out on all the new training protocols while I'm in the class and come back in May to a whole new department that I wasn't really into the deep in the training strength. But like Wednesday's a set in stone day for the training, it could be changed, you know, just a thought I have.
Yeah.
Going through it.
It's a,
Because it's gonna be all new and I don't wanna miss out on everything
Yeah.
as well as, which I get if 3 people feel the same.
that is a great point. To answer your question, Wednesday is not set in stone, but that would be up to the new officership down there. And I'm certain the members would probably, but. So I don't have an answer for you other than. Any other questions? All right, well, seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.